One of the staples of being a Jedi is being free of attachment, which by extension means loving someone is forbidden. But love is not a black and white thing, and anyone who's lived long enough knows it can lead to hurt feelings and dark places, or joy and light, depending on how it goes, and depending on how the one in love chooses to act and react. And today I wanted to look at what's always been a strikingly poetic contrast between two characters for me. Something that seems so prominent and important, but a subject I haven't seen addressed fully, so I'm going to address it today. First off, I love the mirror image of character arcs between Anakin Skywalker and Galen Marek, who's more commonly referred to as Starkiller, the main protagonist from The Force Unleashed. Anakin goes from the light side into the dark, and soon after, Starkiller goes from the darkness of Anakin back into the light. And when I mean from Anakin's darkness, I mean, of course, because Starkiller was trained strictly by Darth Vader. The two characters are intrinsically connected. They're exact opposites in quite a few ways, but namely in one, that love drives Anakin Skywalker to the dark side, while love brings Galen Marek into the light. I think their reactions are exactly appropriate and perfectly fitting to the characters. Anakin is so afraid to lose a loved one because it's happened to him before. He came from love. Shmi Skywalker was a very kind and caring mother, and was the only person in the universe who meant anything to him. So after she died, and his relationship with Padme blossomed, he was back in that exact same position, but had the previous experience of the death of his mother to look back on. The knowledge of the pain of losing a loved one made the prospect of losing Padme a very real and terrifying thing that any person would naturally try to avoid. And especially in Anakin's situation, again, Padme was the only person in his life he saw a future and happiness with, so he was willing to sacrifice his moral code and throw reason aside to try and save Padme, to save his one chance at happiness. On the opposite end of things, we have Galen Marek, who was raised by pain and fear and loneliness. Sure, he lived with his father as a young boy, but his world starkly and instantly turned from one of relative safety, and we're assuming love, to a life akin to enslavement. He was taken from his home at a young enough age that his mind was able to readjust to his new surroundings. And his time with his father was presumably tumultuous enough, given Order 66 and all the running and hiding that would entail, that young Galen never truly knew contentedness and love. He was aligned with the dark side purely because he had been indoctrinated into doing so by his master Darth Vader. He, unlike Anakin, did not have that benefit, or in this case, that hindrance of hindsight. So when he met his new pilot Juno Eclipse, the feelings that blossomed within him were novel. He was inspired by this new and wonderful emotion and didn't have the full capacity to let it scare him, simply because he'd never felt it before. You can see throughout the game or novel that simply by being with Juno and seeing the universe through her eyes, that goodness was always within Starkiller. Juno just allowed him to set it free. By the end of the story, her love inspires him to be the most courageous and righteous Jedi he could be. He reaches his full potential through love and through naivety in tandem, while Anakin, on the other hand, fell to the dark side through love, and the fear of losing that love given past experiences. Now there's one other thing I want to mention about their themes being conversely related. It's known that the famous piece, Duel of the Fates, isn't really about Maul, Qui-Gon, or Obi-Wan, but rather the duel itself and the accompanying music is about the fate of Anakin Skywalker. If Qui-Gon lives, he will have a fatherly mentor who will love and look out for him. If he dies, then Obi-Wan, who we know doesn't even care for Anakin at first, is much stricter and unmoving when it comes to the Jedi Code, and is simply not mentally prepared to train a young Jedi, will have to mentor Anakin instead. And we know where that leads. It's also important to remember that Duel of the Fates plays in every prequel film. It's showcased most prominently in 1, but it comes back in 2 when Anakin decides to try and rescue his mother and subsequently gets revenge for her death, a turning point on his journey to the dark side. And it also plays in 3 when Yoda fights Darth Sidious, Anakin's new master. So the theme is tied to Anakin's fate, to his story. In The Force Unleashed, at any tumultuous or defining moment we hear this track. An almost perfect musical mirror image to the Duel of the Fates. The Duel of the Fates theme motions downward, whereas the Force Unleashed theme motions upward. They're in the same key, same tempo, everything. I think it's extremely powerful, poetic, and beautiful that the Rebel Alliance spawned from Starkiller's martyrdom. And I love that in the end it's revealed the Rebel crest is the Marek family crest. It seems so fitting to have the pure spirit of Galen Marek, who becomes a saint in a way, symbolically watching over the rebels as they fight the Empire, the light of Galen fighting the darkness of Vader. Ram Koda, who acts as Galen's mentor after his transition to the light, even mentions to Juno in the very last scene how he felt through the Force that Galen's love for Juno was what inspired him to such heights of bravery and heroism. And of course, love is inevitable. Caring for those around you is inevitable. We know Obi-Wan loved Anakin deeply as a brother, and Obi-Wan is the epitome of a Jedi. The Jedi knew that love was inevitable for anyone. They were simply trying to caution Jedi in training from forming those bonds because it has the potential to make you weaker. Tender emotions leave you with your guard down when you know what you stand to lose. But those same emotions can in other situations inspire the best in us. And both of their stories are very accurate looks at those two possible outcomes and rest at the heart of what makes Star Wars such an epic and timeless thing.